right, let's see what this guy Trump's talking about. Should be good. It look all pretty clean, right? Oh God. All right, here we go. The things that have to be going through his mind on a day-to-day basis have to be insane, right? He has the world in his hands. He's obviously one of the biggest figures, probably the most famous person in the world right now. I mean, who else besides him or Elon, right? Two probably the biggest people in politics right now. I mean, it has to be magnitudes of pressure, especially with having to deal with foreign aid and foreign trade. It's insane.
Thank you very much. It's a real honor to have the highly respected, the great Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Norway with us today, who, as you know, has been doing a fantastic job and truly respected throughout the world as a leader. And thank you very much for being here. We appreciate it. And we're going to be having a meeting in the Oval Office in a little while where you'll be invited back and you can ask some questions. It's also a pleasure to have my friend who did such a good job at NATO.
Yeah.
Great friend, right? So
Right.
You really did. We started off, they had no money, and they ended up having a lot of money after we said, you got to pay up. But you did a fantastic job, and thank you very much. And I'm glad you're here. Glad we meet each other again and under these circumstances. So we'll be meeting.
So apparently Trump is already selling 2028 hats. Like, he's already preparing for the next president. He's pre-firing out the wazoo. He's ready for people to already champion 2028. Yeah, 2028. Sorry, not 2025. 2028 for his next presidency. And he may even before that or next one, he's probably going to try to do it again.
A little while at the Oval Office, and if you have maybe one or two questions, we'll do it now. And after that, we'll go to the Oval.
Mr. President, on Russia, do you still believe that Putin is serious about peace, given the events overnight in Ukraine? And if that bombing doesn't end, are you considering new sanctions on Russia?
So we are thinking that very strongly that they both want peace, but they have to get to the table. We're waiting a long time. They have to get them to the table, and I think we're going to get peace. We want to save 5,000 young people. I used to say 2,500. I now say 5,000. We have, Mr. Prime Minister, we have about 5,000 young people a week that are dying in that ridiculous war. And, you know, I started out because I didn't like all the money that we were paying, and then I realized how many people were dying. And that's by far the more important element right now. I'm saying we can save thousands of people. And I don't like that it takes long at all. But I think they both want to make peace.
Yeah.
I do believe so. There's a lot of hatred there. There's a lot of very bad blood, a lot of distrust. But I think I hope we're going to get there for the sake of a lot of young people that are dying. I have my own deadline. And we want it to be fast. And the Prime Minister is helping us. He wants it to be fast too. And I think everybody in this, you know, at this time in NATO, they want to see this thing happen. So we have a deadline, and after that, we're going to have a very much different attitude. But I think that has a very good chance of getting done. Just keep doing what they're doing. We have a very good relationship with Norway. Great leader, great people. I know many of the people in Norway, and it's truly it's an incredible country. So all they have to do is keep doing what they're doing, I think, is probably the best answer I can give. Yes.
The former Secretary General of NATO is here,
Yes.
Mr. Stoltenberg. How important is the NATO Defense Alliance, Mr. President? Is it sacrosanct from your perspective?
Well, it's a very interesting question. It's certainly very important for Europe, and I think without us, it wouldn't be as nearly as powerful. And,
Yeah, without
as
us.
the former Secretary.
I think that's something that a lot of people are mad. I think it's just kind of mad that, you know, they were promised so much, not foreign aid, not all these immigrants coming in. And I think the administration, from the looks of it right now, hasn't been doing too well with that. Now, I still think that they're going to go forward with it, and hopefully they do end up, you know, getting some of those things done. But right now, a lot of people are just kind of in this consolidation period with MAGA, just in general, of whether or not they're actually going to come to fruition with all the promises that they made during the coming up during the election, right?
Secretary General, who did a great job. And tell you, I played when I was there a very big role
Yeah.
in making sure that NATO is funded by the 28. At
They
that
gotta
time,
stop
they had
spending all
28
that
countries, including
cheese.
us, 'cause many of the
Wasting all
countries
that
weren't paid, and,
cheese.
they ended up being paid, you would say, and the Secretary General was very nice about it, as far as I was concerned. Other presidents went in, they made a speech, and they left, and that kept going on. And in the meantime, they had no money, and the United States was paying far more than its fair share. You could say that they were paying. I actually said sometimes it looked like 100%. And it was unfair. And the two of us worked very well together, and we took care of the situation.
That the U.S. Are you going to be looking into that and see which of the countries are actually in a trade surplus?
Yeah, well, with the United States, almost everybody has a surplus.
But not to
It's really an amazing,
Right.
it's an amazing phenomenon.
Right.
Now, there's
We're
a
giving
surplus
everybody
of
money.
$2 billion, I think you have with us.
What are we doing?
Congratulate you. We got to get a little bit of that for ourselves, maybe, but they do have a surplus. Norway has a surplus.
In the current tariff situation, analysts have pointed out that the U.S. actually need allies. Do you consider Norway as a possible ally in the situation?
I think Norway's always been an ally. They've been somebody we've been very close to, very friendly with. Maybe more so now with me than other people, but I think Norway's always been a great ally, yeah. Norway's been a friend.
That's a very strange question, actually, because the U.S. is our lead ally, and we build on a relationship which we will talk about now, Mr. President. But
Yeah.
it's of high relevance, and I'm very happy that we have Secretary of State and Secretary of Defense.
Right.
So this is a very strong tie.
But it was a question about ally in the tariff situation specifically.
Completely different deterioration from the other question, by the way.
Yes.
Oh, well, that's, we're talking about a little bit different subject then. We're talking about a different type of ally. No, in this case, he would be very much inclined to be an ally of Norway because he wants to make the best business deal possible. And Norway and the Norwegians are great business people. They're great traders. They're great, very smart nation, very well-managed nation. Has been for a long time. And
Those foreign countries like Swedish, Switzerland, Norway, I hear, they're really nice, very minimal amounts of crime. Maybe not Norway, but I know like Switzerland, Swedish. Every time you hear those sort of European countries, I always feel like they have like the best people, like in comparison to, America or, India, China. They always feel like those are like the more so like minority of the world, like polished, cherry-picked areas, right? Where like they actually have healthcare for their people, they actually have sustainable incomes, sustainable housing. And then for us in America, really here in America, it's kind of always a shit show, right?
particular now with this leadership, but we'll be.
But one thing that I think we always have greater is that we've always focused on militant force, brute force. Some would say peace through strength, right? So like even though we sort of tangentially, compared to the rest of the world, have this surmountable amount of people who create like a huge cataclysm of chaos, we still surmount them in notable ingenuity.
Talking about trade and other things, and I think we're going to come to a conclusion very quickly.
Well, I salute President Trump for having been taking very important initiatives to get this conflict towards an end, which both parties deserve. We need to have a ceasefire, save lives, move towards something which is more secure for Europe, for the people concerned.
Right.
And on that we work together. And I look forward to go into some details because we are at the critical moment.
God.
On that price. That is a committee taking care of that, which is completely working on its own terms, and I cannot comment on that.
Mr. President,
But thank you very much for that question. I like that question. Well, they had a meeting this morning, so I can't tell you. It doesn't matter who they is. We may reveal it later, but they had meetings this morning, and we've been meeting with China. And so I think you have Jeff, as usual. I think
Finally talks about China. These tariffs for the I want to say the vast majority of people, it's probably been a very scary thing. It's probably going to put a ton of people underwater, not just off of just the basis of how the trade deficit works, but I think that before it was like yeah, let's do tariffs. And now everyone's like, wait, hold on, slow down. Let's not do it. Now, everybody knows that tariffs are basically just an import. It's a tax on an import that this then gets passed on to the consumer. Now you can leverage this because if a company, if the US is now doing this, this hurts your sales as a company. And a lot of Chinese companies ship their things, like 84% ship their products to the United States. So most of their stuff is either traced IP from America, or it's just like shitty, like plastic, random, leathery, like miscellaneous items that get shipped to the United States. And if you can levy, if you can tax it, then you can levy your interest, because now it'll stop us from being under levered for a surmountable passage of time. Because if you sit there and you allow this to continue, the continuity in China's uproar, advancing their technology. I think China just released the first ever 10G Wi-Fi, the first ever, like they just have a huge advancements in that sort of agriculture. And there was like this weird assumption back in the day that China was just this like horrible sweatshop area. But clearly when you see now, they have this huge, megalithic enterprise. Now they do, live in a dictatorship, which is not as free as America. Okay, land of the free. Now we had to fight to get the speech free again, but that's fine. Okay, still not as free as they really want to say, but with a tariff, you can use this to effectively dupe your opponent, because now your opponent has to do the same thing towards you. Now they have to retaliate with a tariff that they probably don't want to pass on, because their consumers are not going to hurt. So it's like, do you want to hurt with us, or do you want to come to a deal where we also have the same interests, so we aren't getting scammed? Because we've been scammed for so long, we may as well go for it. It's balls to the walls. Now, it is a self-destruct button if the imposed tariffs do not affect that economy as much. If they do not feel that it's necessary, because if they have the means of production where they have the rare earth metals, or they just have, manufacturing in general, most of the items that China uses or ships out is made in China. It is a product of China, and then it gets shipped to the United States. So you have to really think about this. I mean, there's tons of businesses, especially like your apparel businesses, any sort of like tangible items that were shipped in cargo ships now have to either be sent back, or they have to be charged an extra fee. So they're going to pay upfront charges for the amount of money that they spent on shipping going across, because now they have to make up for the initial tariffs that were implemented beforehand or after the fact. Insane, right? So I'm glad he's giving an update on this, because people were left out, like, curious, like, is this going to happen? Like, is he actually going to go through with 125% tariffs? Or is this going to be a pump fake in order to get China to suppress or come to the table to talk about a deal, in which he just said?
You have your reporting wrong. Thank you very much. We'll see you. We'll see you inside. Thank you.
Thank you. Everybody out. Thank you. Thank you. Keep moving, everybody. Keep moving. Thank you. You're out. Thank you.
I would go. We'll all go together to Norway. I want to go skiing. I love Norway. I love Norway. Beautiful. And beautiful people.
It is a very nice place from the looks of it. Awesome. So over that prolonged amount of time in which it takes for people to get like sort of the recollection of whether or not he's going to pass these tariffs off, hopefully China will come to the conclusion that, hey, look, I understand that you want to up your people, and maybe we can come to the deal. I think that this is a symbiotic relationship where we have, it's like, why wouldn't you want your best friend to also be as dope as you? Yeah, maybe they could like betray you, but in a sense where I want the foreign relations to be as optimistic and commemorable as possible, those are going to be your underlying factors of whether or not you want to keep those people around you, right? Like, that is how you keep a good, sustainable, not just, symbiotic relationship between two parties, but really trying your best to create like a harmonious nature between all cultures, because these are your main, China and America are your main guys. Okay, we're talking about the biggest agricultural infrastructure, the biggest GDPs, the biggest amount of surmountable cash flow index per supply and demand China has on us, right? But it is what it is. Okay, it is what it is. So your avid consumer is going to hurt from this, and if they can come to the compromise deal, this can satisfy both parties just as much. It doesn't mean that China's going to be down and out forever. Obviously, we're going to have moments where we're going to have to surmountably pass China to some extent. But I think that as a long-term symbiotic relation, it is for both parties to come to the conclusive nature that we're all in unison. I mean, could you imagine if it were literally like it's almost like trauma bonding, right? With a relationship, just with someone in general. You can't build a relationship or fix a relationship that no one is willing to come to the table and even discuss. So if they aren't able to come up and effectively be the beneficiary in our just opposed view, and try to not conflate the two contradictory business opportunities in which we are trying to negotiate a deal, they should be like, hey, okay, we understand, and we're willing to conversate and see what we may be able to do. But on the contrary, it seems to me like China doesn't want to compromise, and that they're willing to go head to head. They were imposing retaliatory tariffs, and just recently, though, it was issued that they dropped the tariffs to 64 to 53% or 34%. It's just that they're in the talks right now, so it's a bit of a uproar of whether or not they actually want to go through the fruition with these statements, right? So we'll have to see whether or not China and or Donald Trump compromise. But that's it. So with that being said, I'll see you when you're older.